Hello everyone, this is Chocolate here, and today I'm gonna do my rather long overdue video of Year 2, the full Year 2, all the full recommendations for competitive CB. And the reason I'm doing it today is because CN finally reached their first N.Kyaru CB, and that's kind of glorious to see because they are running triple N.Kyaru in some cases on phase 3, so that's rather exciting, and I think we've got a good idea of what our pulls should look like and which units to prioritize if we are on limited resources, which I assume most people are. So this is going to be a longer video, so get comfy, get a drink. I've got some Assam black tea, and once that's gone, I've got some Aiko Japanese whiskey and some Monster Zero Ultra. So, first of all, I'm gonna talk about the general metagame that is upcoming from next CB on all the way to N.Kyaru, and what the goals should be in terms of units for those. So, right now we just came off the double physical and single magical meta, where we generally used a magical team and two rather good physical teams. We were kind of spoiled for choice there a little bit last CB, but next CB we are going to enter a very different meta because we have UE Eriko now, V.Shizu and Muimi, and that's kind of the first unit that's necessary to pull here, Muimi. What this means is that for the upcoming meta we are generally going to be running triple fizz, unless there is a boss that's specifically anti-fizz or very strong, or where the mages are very strong against, at least for a while. And then once we reach N, that's going to be another meta shift, because N means we can generally run a mage team that is about on par or rather stronger than the third physical team would be, so it's going to be a lot easier to make two functioning physical teams and one mage team for us. O.Kuuka makes this even easier, and after that there's just a lot of stagnation for a while until we reach the summer units, specifically S.Suzuna and S.Maho kind of change things up a little bit, but the main thing is after S.Saren and S.Makoto things change drastically, because there's again calls a major meta shift. S.Makoto just makes physical teams so strong that we kind of have a couple, or maybe just one single CB probably, where we run triple physical again, because physical teams are going to be just so insanely strong for a while. However, for this one, mages I think are still going to be viable for the third team, just not as strong as they were before. And after that, with S.Maho and Neneka, things are going to be very different, because at the same time we're going to get the 6 stars, specifically 6-star N.Kyaru and 6-star Kokoro, which means we are going to enter the double mage team phase, which also means X.Kyouka loops. So the meta is going to be looking very different, because for the first time we are going to be running double mage teams and a single physical team. And luckily physical teams are going to be strong enough that we are going to run one still, but the two mage teams are going to be so strong that there's just no way around it. And generally for those CBs there's going to be 1 to 2 X.Kyouka loops, which kind of dictate how the other teams look, because it's all about making those X.Kyouka teams fit into the general hit allocation. When not running X.Kyouka loops, things look kind of different, but still it's going to be double Neneka mage teams and a single physical team. After that, this kind of continues for a while, some CB without X.Kyouka loops, some with 1 or 2, but it's a general thing here. That's going to persist all the way, with some slight changes from new units that allow for some different comps, but generally the meta stays the same until N.Kyaru, where If you take a look at current CNCB, which is ongoing at the time of this recording, it's just 2 Nyaru teams, sometimes 3, and 1 kind of physical team to just half punch whatever is left, because at that point it's going to be just which teams are you able to half punch, meaning kill a boss in under 55 seconds with, because at that point if you kill in under 55 seconds you get 55 seconds or more overtime, so you can just kill the same boss twice with 1 team. So at that point it doesn't matter whether it's a physical team or a magical team or a Nyaru team, as long as you can kill 1 boss or 2 bosses with 1 team, it's all fine. And it's also the reason why they are mostly running the triple Nyaru setups only in phase 3, and also that CB is probably not going to be applicable to us because we are kind of behind them, but still it's a good idea of what things are going to look like for us. So let's back it up a little bit and start right from the start. So I've got the reference sheet here pulled up again because it's a very good document, and we're gonna start right on the current banner. So V.Shizu. This is a, I'm hoping you've already got her and are in the unfortunate situation where you have to kind of stock up gems every day from the login bonus and kind of try to roll for her desperately, because I'm gonna be honest, without V.Shizu it's going to be borderline impossible to play CB for half a year. Or like, not borderline impossible, but for competitive CB you just won't be able to play it. But for just general messing around, like top 50, top 150, yeah, well, you could retire there. But generally I hope everyone gets her, because she's kind of one of the main goals everyone should aim for during Year 1. So kind of why is she this good? She increases TP boost, P attack, P critical, she's a TP battery for the whole team, and she also does a little bit of P def shred and a little bit of damage. So for her, she's kind of the first complete package of a support unit that just does everything we want, and she does it very good. So that's why we want her and why she's so hard to replace, because other comparable supports are going to take a little while until they get here. So moving on, Muimi, obviously this is the next must-have unit. She's going to be about on par with Kaori in terms of damage output once Kaori gets her UE. Before that she's going to be a little bit higher, and most notably she includes a slight def shred and also a knockback, so that kind of makes her a very good pick for certain bosses where the knockback is applicable, or where you need the def shred to get full shred or to fill some gaps, for example. And yeah, she's going to be very fun to play with. I'm already looking forward to it. If you don't know how she works, once she UBs, she will switch forms. She's the first unit of that type, where after her UB, she kind of, every single skill and attack she uses is just basically on the level of a UB for other units, except her skill 2. This is multi-target, so until we get multi-target enemies, this isn't going to be as strong as it will be in the future. But still, she's going to be top DPS, and she's absolutely bonkers in all content, so look forward to her. And since we have free pulls on her, I'm hoping everyone just luck sacks her, or is fine with sparking her anyway, because it's pre-fest, so a fine chance to get some DA. Next up, Kasumi. Many PvP players are already looking forward to her, but for CB players, she can be completely ignored at the beginning, and she should be completely ignored at the beginning, so that you aren't tempted to kind of brick her for PvP use, because we are going to need her at rank 11 for when Nyaru comes. So rank 11 3-star with low EX level, kind of the not full esports package, because she does need some dev stats to actually survive the runs she is going to do, but still she will be a very important unit once Nyaru comes, and in my opinion that's kind of one of the more important parts to pay attention to for CB. So I urge you, don't let bad thoughts like needing to win in PvP take hold and brick her. So instead, just if you pull her, keep her in a state where you can use her in CB later. She's going to be plenty good on attack. She just won't be able to do the crazy 5-star Kasumi tank teams that some will be running, but I think that's fine. And also, don't feel pressure to pull her. For a CB player, she is one of the easiest perm units to farm. Her node is very early, and she's also going to get an event, so it's rather easy to farm her. And since she doesn't need more than 3-star, it's all fine, just farming for her instead of pulling her. And next up, the banner after that is Ayumi, just another PvP unit of no concern at all for CB players. She is not needed, and don't even think about spending the almost 2k DA required for her, because those are going to be missing in summer when we get limited UEs. So those take a lot of DA, and you are going to feel the hurt if you spend on her. Unless of course you spark preface or something to fund her. Now, the first meta change unit, and so for her, everyone who is semi-competitive at least should have enough DA to spark her once she comes. You may be tempted to skip her if your clan allows that. That's fine, I suppose. She can be farmed before the double mage meta hits, and she's a required must-have for yourself and can't be borrowed. However, know this, even before that, she is going to be required to, or you are going to need to have your own N to run many comps, because there are must borrow units a lot of the time, like specialized units, or for example units that would need to be bricked if you ran your own. So if you skip her, just know that some comps are not going to be possible for you, and for competitive clans there are only a few people who can be allowed to skip N, because they are going to be needing very specific allocations and routing. So more than a few people who kind of contribute to the clan more than just 3 hits, in my opinion, are worth allowing a N skip. So just get yourself ready. You are going to probably need to pull her if you want to be competitive after her banner, even though she's a perm. So that's N, just Giga Strong Mage. Yeah, I mean, she does as much DPS as the DPS mages, but she also runs the team, so not much more to say about her. Ru. So this one is kind of funny, because everybody always thought she's a joke unit until CN used her in X.Kyouka loops once, then another time, and then another time, and then another time. So there's been 4 appearances of Ru as the DPS component of an X.Kyouka loop, and that's no accident. She actually does fit some of the very specific properties a DPS mage needs for X.Kyouka. So what I would recommend for you is farm shards at least to 4-star, or be ready to kind of do the last few 20 or 30 DA to get her to 4-star, but don't actually touch her, because there were some really funny and crazy comps that people were running with, like rank 7 level 56 Ru and stuff like that. And if you're someone like me who really enjoys like wacky stuff like that, then I know you're gonna love her. But other than that, it's good to have her in your repertoire, because a lot of the time, or at least those 4 times she was used, she kind of is the option to go to if you are missing someone else, or you don't want to borrow X.Kyouka, or you want to borrow X.Kyouka and can't use your own. So those kinds of things, that's where she can come in. So very good to have, much more than a joke unit. She is a valuable unit for some people. Well, not for some people. She's useful for everyone, but some people she's gonna save their asses, I suppose. if you bring some other mage and need to bring her in instead. So keep her ready to go in case that happens. Next up, Grea, who is kind of going to be, I assume, pure waifu for most, because CN just showed, yeah, there's not really much point in using her, sadly. Yeah, she's always been known as this discount Ilya with less risk, or kind of no risk, but yeah, her damage output just isn't up to par, and those comps that would run her are just better in another form all the time. So for her, she's kind of a waifu only pull, if you do like her. Next up, O.Kuuka. So this is kind of the last component for the singular mage team meta, where she is the first tank that also does magic damage, and she's kind of a little bit comparable to what Jun was at the beginning, except at that point there's already way more units and way better units overall. So she's kind of the, for phase 3, if you need a dedicated tank for a mage team, she provides that. She makes them overall tankier, and also does a little bit of death shred and a little bit of buffing. So kind of when you need a tank, she's kind of the tank to go to, who actually provides a DPS boost to your team. So that's O.Kuuka. If your mages are good enough, you can just borrow her, so no need to pull for her, but she is on Prefest, so if you are planning to pull for the A on that, she is going to be a nice thing to get out of it, because hopefully if you do pull for that, you are going to get her, and yeah, you'll probably also rake in some mana from people borrowing her. The one after that, O.Ninon, Onion. She kind of gets better the longer we wait, since she is very crit reliant, so as units get more crit as the ranks increase, she also gets better, since her UB does a triple damage instead of double damage on crits, and after her UE, her skill 1 does the same thing. So after UE, she's kind of a early phase monster that she's going to be mainly used for. But before that, on release, she's going to be kind of a flex DPS that is optimal quite a lot of times in phase 1. But other than that, she's completely skippable. Just fine. Just easy to save your gems and kind of farm her later for when her UE comes out, because it's going to be, I wouldn't say super easy, but it's going to be fine. Just waiting for her node, farming from that to get her that way, instead of pulling for her. One after that is the ReZero collab. So, favorite blue-haired girl, perhaps for some, Ren, is kind of a mainly PvP unit, and she's going to be very good after her UE. So at this point she's an easy skip, I think, for almost everyone, except if you're pulling her for waifu reasons. But for CB players, she's just a very easy skip, especially because pulling on second banner is kind of favorable for her. But yeah, not really much to say here. From the waifu unit on the ReZero event, yeah, I heard she's kind of okay with them together, but other than that, nothing really impactful, so in my opinion, no need to farm her really. After that, Emilia, a waifu pool for some, I assume, but in terms of CBUs, the only comps I could find with her were very clearly designed just to use her for waifu reasons, but not because they were optimal. So Emilia, pure waifu pool, not really much optimal use in CB. So now we get to the summer units, and Summer S.Suzuna first of all. And for this one I kind of need to make a disclaimer, because there was some confusion with my last video about when I say short term, long term, skippable and stuff like that. So S.Suzuna is a short term investment, but what this means is it's perhaps reasonable for you to skip, especially depending on your gem balance. So while it might be the right choice for you to skip, at a point, don't expect competitive clans to welcome you with open arms or keep you if you aren't providing something specific to them, because she's going to be one of the top DPS and she's going to be a must-have for many team comps and routes. So it's kind of the same with X.Ayane or N.Kyaru, where, yeah, they're skippable, but only if you are really lacking the gems to pull them. Like if you have 100k gems and skip X.Ayane, or in this case S.Suzuna, don't expect competitive clans to welcome you with open arms, because to them it's going to be very clear that you are kind of sandbagging CB performance in favor of your own DA. It's probably the correct choice for you personally, if I'm going to be honest. But for a clan, it's going to be just a question of whether they can get a full roster of S.Suzuna havers instead of keeping in any S.Suzulets. So, yeah, with that kind of out the way for her, the thing is she's a super backloaded DPS, which means she is only useful for teams where you don't actually kill the boss early, which at that point is going to happen. For some bosses, like the boss 1 or boss 2, especially after the summer units come out, that's going to be a theme. And yeah, at that point, kind of, we are still at the point where we use stuff like Eriko and Muimi and Kaori and X.Chrissy and all of that. So her DPS is going to be kind of a bit above that, and she's going to be very strong for like 1 CB or maybe 2 or 3 CB, and sometimes she's going to come in and she's going to be very good on a team, but not really much more than that. So that's kind of something to keep in mind there. Yeah, she really is one of those really short-term investments where she's going to be very strong, and if you do have the gems, I do recommend pulling her, because I think it's very fun to play with these kinds of units, especially with how she works in timelines and stuff like that, where in the middle of the fight she kind of powers up and becomes like this giga strong unit that just chunks out damage like it's nothing. But don't expect her to be someone you can use more than a couple of times overall. So yeah, for her, just a question, how many gems do you have and what does your clan want to do? Because I assume a lot of clans are just going to say, we are not going to run super many S.Suzuna, we're just going to take however many we can get and ignore all the rest. But some, I assume, are also going to say we are going to push for rank and we are going to use S.Suzuna to do it for this CB, and after that, yeah, we're going to have to deal with the consequences, but that's fine. So for that, it's just going to be depending on, I think, where is your position in your clan, what are your gems at, and what are your personal goals with CB. However, what we also get during that time as a welfare unit is Summer EO. And while right now we are kind of using N.Yui and Misato as the main healers, SEO is going to be the superstar healer from then on out. And she has some really weird use cases, like I've seen 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star. So the recommendation here is just farm her to 4-star or farm shorts for 4-star, but keep her at whatever is needed at the time. Kind of look for your own research a little bit if you are in a clan where the leads don't really do that, and kind of check out for the future what you are going to be using her for and how high you are going to take her. But in general, she's going to be very strong. Everyone should kind of farm out her shards and get her gear ready to use her, because she's kind of just a very strong, very good unit, and yeah, a healer that also does damage. She's going to be useful in X.Kkr loops, she's going to be useful generally with mage teams that need some heals, and she's going to be cool. So yeah, and best of all, she's free. So now we enter into the real summer unit meta, where things kind of change up. So S.Saren here, the unit where if you don't pull her, don't expect to be treated like a human by the game. Or by clans as well, because she's just so extremely strong that there's no way to not use her. And also sometimes at the beginning I think she's going to be borrowed on some teams, but that's rather rare overall, since at that point units are still very strong and she's a support unit. So while we're still a little bit starved for strong DPS units, she's gonna be a pure support we are not going to borrow. However, this is kind of the turning point where we get some better supports, and V.Shizu isn't as lonely anymore, since now S.Saren kind of takes over. She fits in all kinds of teams, physical teams, magical teams, just all of them. And yeah, just get ready, you're going to need her and you're going to be happy about having her, because she's probably the strongest unit coming out of these summer units. Just because supports are very rare, especially ones that are as strong as this one. So now we come back to top tier DPS that also does death threat, and that is S.Makoto. She's kind of the... whenever there's a single target boss and you are going to use a physical team on it, S.Makoto is going to be the girl for the job, because she shreds more than regular Makoto and also does more damage. So that's kind of the thing here. Think X.Chrissy, like the change from not having X.Chrissy to X.Chrissy, about the same you can expect from going from no S.Makoto to having S.Makoto. And you're especially going to notice this on multi-target bosses where she just straight up doesn't work. So it's going to be quite fun, because at this point is where you can effortlessly solo or one punch the first or second boss depending on phases. So yeah, she's going to add a lot of DPS to our lineup, and she's going to be a must-have for everyone. Doesn't necessarily have to be a 5-star. I think there are, or it's not really clear yet how many 3-stars it's worth keeping, but she's going to be usable at 3-star, 4-star and 5-star, and unlike regular Makoto in this case, 3-star does have enough uses that it's probably worth having more than just one per clan, so you can just kind of juggle those around and build routes around them. So, and needless to say, yeah, she's a must pull. Without her you just straight up can't play CB. Then S.Kaori from the event. She's going to be a very strong PvP unit, however, she's also going to be a very strong multi-target DPS unit. So, since she does a lot of multi-target DPS with a kind of very favorable range for many multi-target bosses, she's going to be the unit of choice for a lot of them. So, I do recommend 5-starring her from farming her and DA. However, I can also see just settling for 4-star, because at this point we are right in the middle of limited UEs, so DA are going to be in short supply, and I can kind of understand people if they are not able to 5-star her. However, you're not going to regret it. You're going to be one of the Giga Chats who can hit with their 5-star S.Kaori and just do a lot of damage when it comes up, and she's also going to serve you very well in PvP. So yeah, for her, be prepared for the event to farm her. Next up, kind of a rerun. I'm not gonna mention many reruns, but S.Mifuyu, kind of for the same reason as S.Kaori. She's a very strong multi-target attacker, and her UE comes out about this time, and she gets a event rerun. So if yours isn't already farmed up, or I assume most people farmed her to 4-star, this is now the time to farm her to 5-star and max UE, since it does give TP boost. So for S.Mifuyu, this is kind of the time to farm her out fully, because she is one of those units you need on almost every multi-target boss when you are attacking with physical teams. So yeah, that's S.Mifuyu. Just keep it in mind. 2 events in a row that where you do want to farm the event unit. Now we come to S.Maho, and she's kind of in a similar situation to S.Tama, where I think she is double rate up and also double 3-star rates. So she's one of the strongest magic DPSs on release, and since experience on CN has shown that during the double mage meta we are kind of going to be grasping at every single strong mage we can get, you are going to want her. So the question mainly is, do you have enough gems after S.Saren and S.Makoto to also pull for her? And I'd say, yeah, hopefully you can build up some gems again, because there are going to be a lot of free pulls on her banner. So hopefully, even if you don't get her from the free pulls, you should be able to just get her to a spark from the gems generated in between S.Makoto and S.Maho, just because it's not that many pulls that need to be done to get her. So yeah, for her, she's a must-have, and not only just because she's strong, but also because this banner is the best time to get her, and also going to be her strongest time overall. Not having her, well, it's not the end of the world, but you're gonna struggle. Like, it's gonna be even worse than not having Anne, for reference. So now we get to the biggest meta shift we're ever going to have, or at least for a long time, before N.Kyaru. So yeah, I kind of jinxed myself there actually. It's just major meta shift after major meta shift. So Neneka kind of spells the end of double physical and brings in the double mage meta. So yeah, Neneka does it all. She DPSs, she buffs TP boost, she does M attack, she does damage, she shreds, she kind of does it all. And she does it very strong, and she does it multiple times with her clones. So yeah, Neneka is an absolute non-negotiable must pull. You are going to run her on 2 teams each time, and she's going to be powerful in all content, probably the most broken unit we're going to have up to that point. If you thought X.Chrissy was a pretty nice unit to have, Neneka is going to be insane in comparison. So yeah, look forward to her, and really make sure you have gems for her, because missing her the first time is not going to be a fun experience for anyone. Next one up, this is T.Aoi, right after Neneka, and for her it's kind of a question of what does your clan do and what can you afford to do, because she's not really a must pull at this point. She's kind of a Makoto in a backline position. So for her, it's kind of a question of, do you need her in that specific position, or do you need a shredder in that specific position? And that's gonna be the case right for Sagittarius, which is the first CB CN had access to her, and we on global probably won't have access to her on that CB. But what we saw on CN was that with the right physical units you could actually borrow her. Obviously it's CN, so she was just a must pull for everyone, but still for global I can kind of see it happening that for the time she's used, she's possible as a borrow, since again at that point we're going to be running one physical team almost all the time. So yeah, for her I think she's fine to skip, just pull with dailies, but if you do have the gems, yeah, nothing against it, you're gonna get to use her probably. So yeah, also after UE she's gonna be a must-have core unit, there's no way around it. After UE she's one of the strongest death shredders in the game. Next up, Chloe. Yeah, she has many fans and she's very cute, but she's just not good at all, so yeah, easy skip. After that we come to H.Kyouka, and since we are in double mage meta, every single strong mage is required pretty much. She is not really skippable in any way, because we are going to be running double majors, and she's going to be used in at least one of those teams every time. After talking to some CN players, it looks like they would like to use her on every mage team almost, but she's not quite at the level where you can run her alongside Neneka in both teams. So she's kind of strong support mage, but not that strong that you would use her 2 times. However, she's an absolute must-have for competitive CB, and she is going to be used for a long time, since N.Kyaru is also a mage, and you are going to be using her on N.Kyaru teams as well. So for her, you're not going to regret pulling her, and it's, in my opinion, at this point, I think if you look at the timeline here, there's going to be Neneka, so even if you go down to 0, H.Kyouka is a full month after that, so hopefully by that time you didn't go to full 0 on Neneka, so you are hopefully able to pull H.Kyouka. If you're not going to be able to pull her, it's going to be painful, not going to lie, but yeah, probably somewhat survivable, hard to tell. Like, really just hope you're not at 0 gems on Neneka, so that you can at least guarantee Kyouka as well. After Kyouka, moving on, H.Misogi, and yeah, for CBUs, I think there's some meme comms where she's pretty good at, but I don't think she's really optimal. Yeah, just farm to 4-star if you like. I think it's worth it because she does have some uses in PvE content and she's pretty funny to use overall, but for CB players there's not really much need to farm her out. On the contrary, H.Mimi is very different in that she is probably the strongest multi-target DPS that we are going to have on her release. So as you may expect, for multi-target bosses she is going to be core. However, not everyone on every guild is going to need to have her, so there is going to be room for some to skip her. So yeah, she is a perm, and I assume most people are going to be running low end gems at this point, so I think this is a case for the whales to pick things up and kind of flex their muscles to pull her and kind of provide those important multi-target hits with H.Mimi and have some breathing room to skip for others. So this kind of thing you should be coordinating with your clan, who gets her and who can skip her. Next up, Luna. So Luna is a must-pull core unit. There's no way around it. She's by far the strongest TP booster, even almost up to current CB. JP, where she's kind of, or Yuki is a little bit stronger or has a kind of better fit in the meta, but she's the one where you can fill up TP to full from a single skill, one use on her. So yeah, she is a perm, and there is going to be a slight advantage to pulling her or not pulling her in this case, because it is expected that we are going to be getting a 3-star perm pick ticket, meaning a buyable ticket that allows you to pick any 3-star released up to that point that is permanent. So what many people did is they skipped Luna, bought the ticket, and now they have Luna for just the price of the ticket instead of potentially sparking her. However, since there were 2 very strong perm units before that, meaning H.Mimi and T.Aoi, this is also an opportunity where if you want to be sure, like 100% sure, that you are going to get Luna, you can pull for her, not rely on the skip ticket being on global in case it isn't, and being able to use the skip ticket, or not the skip ticket, the permanent pick ticket on H.Mimi or T.Aoi or any other really important perm you skipped at that point or don't have at that point. So that's kind of one of these strategies that's optional to do. If you look here, the next banner is going to be a pure rerun banner, so I'm going to skip that. But after that, it's Kaya, and Kaya kind of does some rather nice damage in comparison. However, only for the first UB. So she's a really front-loaded DPS unit where for her first UB, she's going to do a lot of damage. She has really high multipliers, kind of, I think, the highest in the game at that point. So buffing her up and ensuring that her UB is going to be the most powerful thing imaginable is a very viable strategy. And I assume those using it are going to stop loss or get ambulanced a lot from not having it crit. But overall, aside from the few times where you can get a half punch with her, I don't think she's going to be used, and I don't think it's worth pulling for her, because the upcoming units are going to be much stronger, and the units we have at that point are also strong enough that she isn't really optimal outside of a few very fringe use cases like on overflow teams. So yeah, Kaya, in my opinion, easy skip. Moving on, X.Chrissy, which is, to say, well, a very difficult choice for many, because at this point, yeah, the issue with her is that she gives TP boost stats on her bonds. So for regular Chrissy, you are going to need X.Chrissy bonds to make her work on some timelines where the extra TP boost from X.Chrissy is going to be required. So many joke that she's a unit you pull to improve Chrissy, and yeah, it's somewhat true, because she does have her time in the spotlight for exactly one CP, where she's going to be very strong, and she's going to be kind of this DPS support hybrid where she does a lot of DPS and she does a lot of good support stuff at the same time, and she's going to be very strong. But that's it. After X.Chrissy, if we look at the timeline here, there's N.Kyaru, so it's going to be one CB where she's going to be very strong, and after that, yeah, you're going to have to look very hard to find times where she's really optimal. So kind of a tragic tale here with X.Chrissy. However, I would recommend, if you have the gems to still guarantee N.Kyaru, after that I would pull her, because not having X.Chrissy is going to be kind of one of those things where if you post your box to a clan and they notice, oops, you don't have X.Chrissy, which means we're going to have to allocate you to a route that doesn't require the TP boost, it's not going to be, let's say, the best first impression to make. So yeah, for her it's just, hopefully you have the gems and don't need to worry about it, but yeah, it's not the end of the world to not have her. It's just not fun, because you're locked out of a lot of comps where she is needed or where a bonded Chrissy is needed. However, again, after this, there's N.Kyaru, so a lot of the time, if you are going to run Fizz, there is at least the option of borrowing another person's Christina with the X.Chrissy bonds. So yeah, we're gonna get some more information as we get closer to it, because we're gonna see more what CN does and how many of these timelines actually exist. So yeah, there's hope yet for those who won't be able to afford her, because I do think there's at least a good chance of kind of leaving her out until, well, until you can maybe catch her on her rerun or something like that. So the welfare unit for that event is going to be X.Nozomi. She's kind of an interesting unit because she's kind of a midline tank support. I don't really know how to describe it, because this kind of a really funky unit who doesn't really see much use at all, but I don't know, I've heard people use her for some stuff and she can be useful, so I guess if you're one of those people, feel free to farm her, but for CB use, I don't think there's been a single time where she's been used. Next up, X.Ilya, who is, oh boy, when she releases, she's gonna be probably the most powerful magic DPS up to that point. She just does extreme amounts of damage, and if you can run her in a timeline where she gets to low HP safely, then she is going to put out damage that I don't think we've seen up to that point. Like, she can very easily clean up bosses in phase 3 with one hit, and half punch bosses in phase 1 and 2 sometimes with a secondary mage team that doesn't even use all the best mages. So she's going to be very, very strong for a single CB, because the CB after her release is going to be N.Kyaru. So kind of unfortunate for her, but she's also a perm, so kind of a double whammy. She's probably the most short-term unit you can think of, because having her is kind of probably the biggest possible damage increase for one CB that you could have, because I assume most people are going to skip her, and you should probably skip her if you are even asking about whether to pull her or not. But know this, if you wanna be in a clan that pushes rank for that one CB, she is going to be an asset to have, especially if you have a lot of gems from maybe luck sacking a lot of banners during summer. So that's kind of maybe one of those tickets to push into a very competitive clan if you haven't already at that point. So yeah, X.Ilya, a tragic story of the strongest magic attacker for a single CB. So now to the big girl, N.Kyaru herself. I didn't think much needs to be said. On JP at the beginning, they didn't really have all the knowledge of how to make her work properly, and it's kind of been improved every time she came up after that, on every single server. And CN at this point, they are currently on day 2 of their CB, or their first CB with her, where there isn't a lock barrier yet, just the damage limit of 999,999 damage. But yeah, you're gonna need to pull her. Considering what we've seen on CN, she's gonna be used on 2 teams every time, sometimes on 3 teams. What happens at this point is gonna be, at least for this one CB, is that every single team is gonna do a half punch, meaning killing the boss in 55 seconds, refunding 55 seconds overtime at this point because it's 20 seconds extra, and then killing the boss again. So it's gonna be one physical team that does that in phase 1 and 2, because they can do it consistently on enough bosses that that's kind of the way to go. And then using 2 N.Kyaru teams, because she does have enough support to do that at that point. And for phase 3, they did use a team 3 with N.Kyaru and stuff like Yuki and regular S.Saren, for example. That's also when Kasumi kind of shines, because she can be used as the singular MDEF shredder on N.Kyaru teams, where you kind of pull the team full with support units for N.Kyaru herself and one Kasumi to do the MDEF shredding. For example, for the other team, you are going to use, for example, Akari and Anna, or someone like S.Kyaru and Anna, or S.Kyaru and Akarin, or stuff like Suicide as S.Saren and stuff like that. So N.Kyaru is going to be the big must-have if you don't have her. Yeah, it's over for Comp CB for a while for you. At least until her rerun. Let me just check when that is. Oh boy, it's gonna be a while and she comes back, so almost 6 months. So I really do recommend at this point. This is also why X.Chrissy and X.Ilya are kind of the must pulls that they should be, is just because if you don't have the gems to guarantee Nyaru, yeah, don't risk it. You're gonna need her, because her UB scales exponentially with the damage she does. So every time she UBs, she gets an M attack buff that is proportional to the damage she did. So every single UB, if you do it correctly, her M attack buff grows, she does more damage, gets a higher buff, until at some point she's gonna auto attack for 1 million damage each time. So yeah, that's Nyaru. However, that's only without the log barrier, which stands for logarithmic barrier, which is kind of a thing put in place to kind of keep Nyaru in line, where it's kind of a soft damage cap, meaning in addition to the 999k damage absolute upper limit for individual hits, also every single ability in total, if it would do more damage than a certain amount, it's kind of reduced down in a logarithmic fashion. So it kind of keeps her exponential growth in check that way. So she's still going to do a little bit more damage with each UB after a certain point, but it's just not going to grow into infinity. So it's going to be capped at some point. You're going to just not get much more damage from each consecutive UB, and at that point it's going to be, yeah, still the strongest unit in the game at that point, but not to the point where you just double kill every single boss with her. But yeah, this is the major meta change, Nyaru. So after this, just a few extra mentions. New Year Suzu, which is the welfare unit for Nyaru. Yeah, not much need to farm her, at least at that point. She kind of has a really nice action speed buff on her UB, but there's a big but there, in that 6-star Yui just does more. She has a 100% buff, whereas Suzu only has 60% by comparison. So I don't really see her used in CB, so not much need to even farm her at all. And yeah, but still, if you're a Suzume fan, of course there is no way around it. You're gonna have to 5-star her like I'm going to do. And yeah, after that we are almost at the end of the year. This is about the double NUI and N.Hiyori banner. I assume everyone just has NUI, because yeah, not fun without her, at least in my opinion. But this is kind of the last opportunity to pull N.Hiyori, because she's going to be the prime DPS and buffer for physical teams for year 3. So this is kind of the last chance to get her, and she's gonna be needed, because even though there are going to be 1 to 2 Nyaru teams each CB, you are still going to be running physical teams, and she's kind of the unit that enables a lot of those. And also she's going to be a unit that everyone needs to have their own of. So yeah, for her it's gonna be you're gonna need her, and hopefully you already pulled her in this banner, or when she was up for global, because obviously that's the best chance of not sparking her, because for this banner, which is a double banner, there's a high chance of sparking her, which is, yeah, not going to be a fun experience after putting all these year 2 units. But yeah, that's N.Kyaru. Just we're going to know a lot more about it when she comes first, because there still is a chance that CN shows she is kind of skippable and not necessary to have, but I assume she's just going to be absolutely necessary to have, and everyone is going to have to pull her at this point at the latest. Which is also the reason I hope nobody who had like 70k gems skipped her for no good reason. And yeah, after that, the last unit of the year is going to be N.Y.Kkr, which is, yeah, a tank for once. So this is Kokoro's tank form. like a proper tank this time, not just someone you can swap in front. And she does Kokoro things, so she heals and regens, and she buffs P attack, and this time she also does a crit damage buff. So not just a crit chance buff, but a crit damage buff. And that's also going to be why she is very strong and kind of one of those, if you still have gems left over at this point, yeah, you should pull her probably, because she's kind of for those crit reliant teams that we're gonna see in year 3. For example, with O.Ninon UE, she's gonna be kind of the prime support tank for those, where she gives extra crit damage modifiers to them. And also she taunts, but that's kind of one of those bonus things that sometimes comes up, where she is kind of the best unit to use when you want a taunter on your team. And that about does it for year 2. My voice has gotten a little bit rough over the entirety of this recording. Some closing thoughts. There is a lot of stuff to pull this year, and I think it's going to be a matter of resource management, getting as many gems as you can, and communicating with your clan. I think this is one of the most important parts of playing CB, is kind of getting a feel for what your clan wants, communicating in advance what they want from you, and what you can do, because a lot of those units you're going to know in advance whether you will want to skip them for gem reasons, and it's going to be important to know also obviously in advance whether that's fine with the clan, so that you can know or make your decision whether you're going to risk it a little bit and pull a unit you wouldn't otherwise pull, or whether you're just going to say, no, sorry, I really just can't afford the pull, I'm gonna have to skip, and then just negotiate whether you're going to stay in clan or whether you just go look for another one that maybe says, yeah, it's fine with us, you can stay here. And yeah, for some units more than others, that's an option, like for example with H.Mimi, T.Aoi and S.Suzuna, but for others the goals are very clear in my opinion. Just S.Saren, S.Makoto, Neneka, H.Kyouka, Luna, and N.Kyaru. There's a kind of, if you have all of those at the end of the year, you're going to be kind of set. Also in addition with N.Hiyori, but all the others are kind of these midterm things, like from different uses, like Anne, until you can farm her, is going to be very important to have your own. S.Suzuna, really short-term unit. S.Maho, really strong midterm unit, where you are going to get lots of use out of her, and she is definitely worth the pull. But then T.Aoi, kind of a, not really even a midterm investment, just a nice thing to have. H.Kyouka, really long-term investment. H.Mimi, kind of a, yeah, always nice to have investment, but a perm, so kind of the issue there. Luna, just the can't play CB without her thing, and yeah, X.Chrissy and X.Ilya, where it's just super short-term investment, but X.Chrissy with the advantage that at least she's limited and also does boost regular Chrissy. So hopefully you've got a better idea of who to pull and who to skip for year 2. I don't recommend making a plan for yourself yet, just kind of who you want to pull and maybe some ideas of what to do if you're at certain gem counts, like for example if you have to spark Anne and are at 0 gems at this point, so you run into S.Suzuna at like, let's say 1.5 sparks. Maybe you should skip Suzuna at that point, but those are the kind of things that you could make kind of a plan about, but I don't think there's much use to just exactly planning out each single pull and skip, because it's gonna have to change, I think, for most people. Unless you just luck suck every banner, then you can probably just pull every banner. Hey, nobody's gonna stop you. Unless KMR decides to make you spark a couple banners instead. So, that's it for me. I wish everyone good luck. Good luck for those who are still trying to get V.Shizu, and good luck on your free rolls for Muimi. So, yeah, that's been it for me, Chocolate. And I'm gonna say goodbye. Have a nice day.